At the beginning of last year, you and I had our hands on a Triumph Stag. And while that sounds totally unrelated to our subject today, we took the opportunity to discuss the advent of modern vehicle safety standards. Led by the United States and Ralph Nader in particular, we couldn't not mention some of the cars he made his enemies, most centrally the Chevy Corvair. But while we mentioned how unfair singling out particular models could be, our dialogue around the likes of the Corvair and the Ford Pinto were fleeting. But as we have this brochure now in our collection, I think it's time to dig a little deeper. So today on TwinCam, this is the marketing of the Chevrolet Corvair. Before going anywhere, we'll get a little bit of history out of the way first. After all, these cars were never sold here in Europe, and the glory days of American cars were not successful here. In fact, when we compare it to the Europeans, it's hard to believe that this 6-cylinder, 6-passenger saloon car was considered compact. But that's exactly what it was. We all know that the American market went mad in the 1950s, displaying all the affluence and decadence they could muster in their newfound role as one of the world's two superpowers. But that fact leads us to why this was necessary. The Cold War optics of American families all driving around in huge V8-powered art exhibits. The problem with all this is that all the American manufacturers were using their average customer's affluence to move their ranges upmarket, meaning their entry-level cars were no longer entry-level. And this is where America began importing cars from Europe. At the end of 1953, the Americans began taking shipments of Nash Metropolitans, which were built here in Britain, but that we didn't really care to buy. They were designed for the American market, and by the end of the 1950s, we see societal changes that led us into the culture of the 60s. The compact car the Americans took to their hearts being, of course, the venerable Volkswagen. It was 1958 before any American manufacturers began doing something to counter the invasion. But while others merely cut down their larger cars, ever the lazy option, General Motors opted to create something truly novel for the lower end of the American market, bringing us the Chevrolet Corvair in 1959. And this novelty, the modernity relative to its contemporaries, is what this brochure is all about. It is only a rather short one, but 2 of the 3 internal pages are about explaining its engineering in brilliant detail. It's only this first section that describes the more usual attributes of a passenger car, but it's all pitched as a prequel to the nerdiness we'll soon be exposed to. Corvair, in 2 new models, specifically designed the way a compact car should be. With the Corvair, Chevrolet becomes the first American manufacturer to introduce a specific design for a compact car. The key? Development of America's first modern aluminum engine, that's aluminium for those of us who can spell. So light it can be joined with the transmission and drive gears in one lightweight unit and placed in the rear where it belongs in a compact car. This achievement enabled designers to create a totally different car, the newest design in America in generations. Result, an authentic 108-inch wheelbase compact car that measures up to American standards of room, ride and performance. There's a virtually flat floor, there's ample room for 6 passengers, luggage compartment up front. Weight distribution is ideal for sure stability, roadability and a constant ride. There's less overall weight, important factor in the Corvair's generous economy. New air-cooled Turbo Air 6 offers amazing fuel savings efficiency with lower upkeep too. In this economy car, you get a choice of standard or automatic transmission. The Corvair's ride is remarkably smooth and quiet thanks to Quadraflex, first 4-wheel independent suspension on any modern American car. New Unistrut body by Fisher joins body and frame into a single solid unit to help form a car inherently safe to drive. The Corvair is marvellously manoeuvrable, Parking, steering, threading through traffic are delightfully easy. There's a whole new dimension and fun to driving. The Corvette is stylish too, with trim, tasteful lines and such standard quality as sparkling magic mirror finish and safety plate glass all round. Finally, the Corvair is built by Chevrolet, the result of 9 years development. Only the industry leader took time to create a specific compact car design. As a result, only Chevrolet brings you so many engineering advancements for a compact car, so many luxury touches, convenience features and quality construction in an economy car. You'll wonder how the Corvair can combine so many advantages and be priced so low. Now, let's be honest, there's a lot in there that doesn't make much sense. Even as we so often deal with marketing rubbish, some of this is hilarious. The language, for starters, wouldn't be out of place on a badly translated, cheap Chinese electrical good. However, this is the United States 66 years ago. They say the past is a foreign country, and this is the past plus a foreign country. I also don't think I've ever seen so many trademarks. Turboware, Quadraflex, Unistrut, Magic Mirror, Safety Plate. It's a bit extra, but that's what the American market was about back then. And while none of this engineering was anywhere near as advanced as GM would have you believe, it's a compelling way to begin the marketing of a car that, at the end of the day, is about affordability. But while we have some of these lovely in-depth illustrations later on, it is a very cheaply produced brochure. They clearly spent a lot of time on its content, but the physical brochure itself is tiny. And the quality of the print is really very poor. The text edges are all ill-defined, appearing soft, and there's no doubting as a result the fact the Corvair was designed to be an affordable car. But telling us it's the prestige car in its class feels a little bit rich when they're skimping on the brochures. Bear in mind that this is a product of the United States in 1959. At the time, a nation at the height of its powers, producing normal family cars with dimensions and equipment beyond even the most expensive luxury cars produced in Europe. To give you an idea of what I mean, this is a brochure for a typical British compact car from the era, a Morris Minor Traveller, now with 1098cc power unit, nearly half the size of the Corvairs. Now, the Minor is a significantly older car than the Corvair, but this particular brochure is from 1962, only a couple of years after the Corvairs, and you can see the size difference. Now, the Morris brochure is cheap in its own way. Rather than using staples and going into serious depth, it folds out into this lovely poster highlighting its features. But the physical size and the fact it's printed to a really high quality makes us feel better about it, relatively compared to the Corvair, where you feel they were cutting corners. But I digress, because as we turn the page, we're met by our nirvana. The thing I love to see in old car brochures, a load of cutaway diagrams. And the headline of the Corvair is its mechanical layout, which, as mentioned on the previous page, consists of a rear-mounted air-cooled flat six and independent swing axle suspension. But these simple facts brought the Corvair an immediate comparison to the aforementioned Beetle. For while this is a much larger car, it was aiming for the upper end of Beetle's sales, and many people saw it therefore as something of a copy. But while its configuration is very similar to that of the Volkswagen, I would not suggest for a second that the Corvair was emulating the Beetle. Sure, that car was mightily successful in the US, but a rear-engine layout was arguably the best compromise. We saw it mentioned on the previous page, but heading back over to Europe, and you could buy dozens of pendulums throughout the 50s and 60s. Not only from Volkswagen, but also Fiat, Hillman, Renault and Simca, just to name the first four that popped into my head. And all these manufacturers elected such a layout because it was the best compromise. This was before front-wheel drive became truly mainstream in anywhere but France. And while a front-mounted engine was of course the standard, it was deeply imperfect. A rear-mounted engine is cheaper, more practical and more reliable than having a bloody great prop shaft running down the car. And while you could take the Citroën or Saab route of a longitudinal engine driving the front wheels, such a layout requires CV joints, negating the benefits in terms of cost and reliability. The fact the Corvair emerged with a rear-mounted engine may have been unusual for an American car, but it made all the sense in the world when it came to designing a compact car. The same goes for the air cooling, which may result in a rougher and less efficient engine, but it's cheaper and more reliable. And I would wager that the fact that it's horizontally opposed, the cylinders lying flat, is because they wanted the Corvair to appear acceptable. They wanted the classic three-box shape, which with an inline-six or a V6 just isn't possible. Finally, we see the swing axle suspension, which like everything else was not unusual. In Britain, my go-to example is the Triumph Herald, but for the American market, they'd be much more familiar with its sporting counterparts, the Triumph Spitfire and Triumph GT6. In fact, and moving to the luxury market, Mercedes-Benz used swing axles for years in many of their most popular cars. To cut a long story short, the Chevrolet Corvair was not really attempting to emulate the Beetle. Instead, it was shunning the traditional American way of building cars, embracing a more economy and practicality-focused approach that was relatively common across the Atlantic. So to our left we have a general description of the car's features, keeping the trademarks going with the Unipack Power Team and Turbo Air 6 engine, which is cheekily described as the industry's first aluminium engine. But that's only true of the American industry. Rear-engine cars in Europe and Asia almost always had aluminium engines because of their lightweight nature. Rear-mounted engines can act as pendulums at the best of times, never mind with a ruinously heavy cast iron engine back there. In fact, all the manufacturers I mentioned a moment ago were using alloy engines. But following the unistrut body and quadraflex suspension, we see the benefits of the layout, the wide and open cabin space, the refinement of the engine being behind you, and a decent level of practicality. I especially love the illustrations of the airflow around the engine over here, though the 80 brake horsepower output from 2.3 litres is not especially glowing, and that brings us back to the ever ambitious copy. Describing the Unipack Power Team, key to Corvair's performance, economy, compact design. Engine, transmission, axle, all in a compact rear-mounted unit. Development of the American industry's first modern aluminum engine sets off a chain reaction of design benefits. Here, at last, is an engine husky enough to deliver American standards of performance. Yeah, with a specific output nearly half that of some European air-cooled flat sixes. But admittedly, they were performance-facing, so take that with a pinch of salt. Regardless of the capacity, it's a damn sight more power than a Beetle, so let's not complain. But light enough to be combined with the transmission and rear axle into a single unit, placed in the rear where it belongs in a compact car. With the rear-mounted Unipack Power Team, there's a virtually unobstructed floor, so important in a compact car to permit American standards of roominess. There's full seating for 6, with ample room for all passengers. Other benefits of the rear-mounted power unit: a genuinely smooth ride, because weight distribution is excellent. Steering is wonderfully light, because there's less weight on the front wheels. Handling is crisp, more uniform, because the Corvair keeps its excellent weight distribution regardless of load. Braking is sure, reliable, stopping power flows equally to all 4 wheels. Driving is cooler, There's no exhaust system in front or under the floor. Riding is quieter because rear engine noise is isolated behind you. At the heart of the Corvair's unitised power team is the Turbo Air 6. Here is America's most revolutionary engine, the key to the Corvair's compact size coupled with remarkable performance, both smooth and quiet. Built of aluminum and about half the weight of conventional engines, the Turbo Air 6 is engineered for maximum efficiency, with aircraft-type, horizontally opposed cylinder design, valve-in head, short stroke. Economical lubrication and forced air cooling save money from the start. No water or coolants are necessary. Winter freeze-ups, antifreeze costs, overheated radiators are things of the past in this compact economy car. Fuel savings are exceptional too, with this remarkable new engine. Advanced fuel induction, balanced twin carburetors and automatic choke add to lively, thrifty performance on regular fuel. Wedge-shaped combustion chambers, hydraulic valve lifters, oil-wetted air cleaner, oil cooler, full flow oil filter are standard features at no extra cost. Corvair's Unipack combines drive gears and transmission in one. Power flows efficiently through the shortest distance, from engine through the transaxle unit to wheels. You have a choice of two transmissions specifically engineered for the Corvair. Both are major achievements for low weight alone. Both are unmatched in the compact car field for quiet, responsive power flow at all speeds. Standard is the 3-speed synchro mesh with floor shift. Optional Corvair Power Glide offers instrument panel control and automatic driving ease of exceptional durability. We learn from all this, therefore, that they're not only attempting to mark out the Corvair as novel and intelligently engineered, but it also reads to me as if they're trying to justify it. I don't know whether that's coming across to you as well, but for me, there's something beyond explaining the advantages of their design choices. I see it as if they're trying to hit the same points multiple times, drumming it into the consumer that this is all good stuff. Promise. But our very European-feeling Chevrolet only goes further down that track with its unitary construction. Now, by 1960, body-on-frame cars were becoming unusual, so it's indicative of America's motoring standards that the Corvair's monocoque construction is worth so much marketing real estate. But of course, we all know that this is a serious advantage when it comes to, well, everything from practicality through handling to crash safety. Something, of course, that we will come back to very shortly, in fact, because here we have the infamous swing axle suspension. I mentioned earlier on how this was not at all unusual, and the basic geometry of the suspension arms is perfectly acceptable. Not only were they very common at the time, but they morphed into the semi-trailing arms that dominated independent rear suspension designs through to the 1990s. Yet it is also this system that gave rise to Ralph Nader's Unsafe at Any Speed. The book that changed the motor industry all over the world, highlighting the need for greater safety standards, targeted the Chevy Corvair for its less than perfect suspension design. You see, at the output of the gearbox is a universal joint, allowing the suspension to pivot as you might expect. But while a later semi-trailing arm would have CV joints at both ends, the simple universal joints in the centre lead to a slightly choppier power delivery. There's nothing wrong with that per se, but it means it's unsuitable for fitment at the hub, where the drive shafts of a swing axle car are solid. That means that as you traverse bumps and corners, the rear suspension pivot point is at the ends of the gearbox, meaning the wheel moves up and down in an arc, allowing the outside wheel to tuck under the car, resulting in a monumental loss of control. When we combine that with the rear bias weight distribution of a rear engine car, the whole thing can turn into a pendulum. Now, many manufacturers, Chevrolet included, tried to remedy this by both limiting suspension travel and designing the entire car to counter this behaviour, and that worked to a point, but it didn't fix it. In Europe, the handling behaviour of a Beetle or a Herald was simply lived with. But the US is a famously litigious society, and when incidents involving Corvairs happened, regardless of whether the suspension was actually at fault, General Motors found themselves in a hole. This is the hole that Mr. Nader famously exposed, meaning that in spite of its rather common layout, it was the Corvair that took the flak. Independent rear suspension sounds great, and any independent rear suspension is better for ride comfort, but it needs to be controlled well in order to eclipse the solidity of a simple live axle. The Corvair is an ideally designed compact car. Its weight distribution is specifically engineered for every driving situation, under normal full payload or with the driver behind the wheel. With the weight distribution remaining practically unchanged, you get a smooth, constant ride. Cornering is positive, precise. In a light, compact car, traction is especially important. With the Corvair's rear engine, weight balance is distributed as it should in a compact car. You get real traction at the driving wheels. The Corvair grips the road tighter on hills, slippery surfaces or dry pavement. Steering is easy because weight is not concentrated on front wheels. Ideal weight transfer permits nearly equalised front and rear braking for maximum brake life and better stopping power. Corvair hugs the road for straight, heads-up stops. For years, American engineers have sought ideal weight distribution in compact car design. Now it's possible with Corvair's aluminum rear engine. It means driving advancements unmatched by any other compact car. You'll wonder at the Corvair's sure-footed ride, the way it hugs the road. The secret, of course, is the Corvair's specific design. An outstanding engineering innovation is Quadraflex, final attainment of a long-time goal for American engineers, and exclusive to the Corvair among American cars. With this radically advanced, superior suspension, each wheel has its own deep coil spring which cushions out road shock, independent of the action of other wheels. The result is an astonishingly level, smooth ride, and quieter too, because there are no squeaks in coil springs, no need to clean or grease them. Also, the Corvair's independent rear axles and rear suspension design mean more cushioning of the overall weight, further reason for the Corvair's softer ride. And because of the Corvair's superior weight distribution, there's remarkable stability, roadability, feather-light steering and excellent braking, with no need for power brakes. In all, the Corvair's design offers ride benefits that are unmatched by any other compact car. In the Corvair, you ride in a delightfully quiet, spacious interior, comfortable in every detail. You ride too in a car inherently safe to drive. A major reason is new Unistrut body by Fisher, which surrounds you with a unitised structure of steel. Roof, floor, sides and frame are all welded together in a lifetime bond of superior strength. Here's a durable unit structure that's solid and tight, expertly constructed as only Fisher body can. Enclosing the high-level ventilation system, there's a massive cowl in the front with double steel walls extending full width and depth, giving extra strength for greater passenger protection. Behind the passengers, a rigid bulkhead offers additional rear protection, and for extra quietness, the bulkhead is thickly insulated to form a heat and sound barrier against noise from the engine compartment. For greatest possible utilisation of space in a compact car, the Corvair's floor is virtually flat thanks to rear-mounted engine. In all, Unistrut body by Fisher helps set new standards of quality for compact cars. So let us turn our attention back to the safety discussion. The fact that this car has no heavy engine up front and features unitary construction will have undoubtedly made the Corvair one of the safest American cars to crash in. But as I mentioned earlier, the perception was gathered that the Corvair liked to cause a crash in the first place. Recognition of the Corvair's lack of rear-end sophistication came in its final year on sale, 1964, when GM fitted its rear end with a transverse leaf spring, linking the two sides and negating its independent nature, but limiting its ability to tuck a wheel. In fact, the Triumphs I referred to used a similar trick, so again, Chevrolet were by no means unusual. Keep in mind, however, that Unsafe at Any Speed was published in 1965. So not only 6 years after the publication of this brochure, but also a year after the first gen Corvair went out of production. By the time anyone started wagging fingers, these cars were not available new anymore. Yet the hoo-ha around the Corvair being supposedly dangerous undoubtedly affected the second gen car, which did not have the swing axle suspension and therefore did not pose even the theoretical dangers of the original. The whole Nader fiasco will have absolutely led to Chevrolet abandoning the name for 1970. But our understanding of these dates means we can view this car in a different light. The Corvair is very much a product of its time, one that in 1959 appeared perfectly on the money. But while Chevrolet were taking inspiration from Europe, Europe itself was moving on. By the time the second gen Corvair came along for the 65 model year, the writing was on the wall for rear-engine passenger cars. With the proliferation and increasing reliability and affordability of CV joints, front-wheel drive cars maintained the traction advantages of a rear-engine car without the potential consequences. Again, we come back to optics, because when the Chevy Vega replaced the second gen Corvair for 1970, it returned to a front-engine, rear-drive layout. The layout traditional to the American motor industry, therefore sowing the further seeds for an image of the Corvair's failure. Yet in its own time, in the early 1960s, these original Corvairs did very well for themselves. In spite of its placement as an affordable compact, designed expressly to be different from the average American car, it was Motor Trend's Car of the Year in 1960, and across its early years it performed perfectly adequately on the market, even if there were some teething troubles. But proof of Ralph Nader's influence, as well as the rise of the pony car, is that sales of the second gen Corvair halved in 1966. In spite of the fact that any issues raised had nothing to do with the car then being sold, it led to the Corvair name being dragged through the mud. In the event, the press the original Corvair received in the latter half of the 60s was less due to its imperfections and more down to it being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But that will do us for today. If you'd like to read any of the in-depth specifications, then just pause the video now, or head over to my Patreon, where this brochure is available in PDF form, and thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then please do click like and subscribe to TwinCam as well. I'm forever indebted to my aforementioned and wonderful Patreon supporters, so if you'd like to support me that way, then please do follow the link in the description. And I'll have more videos coming along soon.